Good afternoon. It is May 11th, 2026, just a little bit after noon, and you're at the Stanislaus Council of Governments Executive Committee meeting. You would call the roll.
Chair Condit.
Here.
Member Chiesa. Vice Chair Carr.
Here.
Alternate Member Escutia Brayton. Here. Member Hernandez. Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Shannon. Moving on in the agenda, we're going to move to public comments. Is there any public comments about items not on the agenda? Anything online? All right. Go ahead and close public comment and bring it to the consent calendar. Any executive committee member like to pull anything on consent? Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make a comment regarding the consent agenda. We had an email that went out this morning to the members of the executive committee and the members of the public that identified that item 4F had been added to the agenda. We just wanted to clarify that item 4F was on the agenda when the agenda was posted and distributed last week. What was corrected in the agenda packet is we had been notified that the online version of the agenda is tabbed, making it easy for the members of the public to access the items within the packet, and the tabs had been mislabeled and 4F had been mislabeled. And so just want to again clarify that 4F was on the agenda. We did not add anything to the agenda. Just want to make that clear for purposes of the Brown Act.
Okay. Any questions for Lee?
You did talk to the person that made the comment and you made them aware of that?
We can follow up with that individual direct. Yes, thank you.
Okay. And I'll just go ahead and pose a question again. Any member like to pull anything off consent? Is there anyone from the public that would like to make a comment on anything on consent? Anything online? Okay, I'll bring it back to the executive committee for a motion.
For the consent calendar is presented.
I have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 4-0. All right, moving on to discussion item 5A. Recommend the policy board approve the draft fiscal year 2026-27 budget and overall work program. Karen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, members of the Executive Committee. I'm Karen Dunger, and I'll be taking this item. The overall work program is a document that identifies the projects, work tasks, and work products that are required by a metropolitan planning organization. The draft OWP was submitted to our funding partners, FHWA, FTA, and Caltrans, on March 12th for their review to ensure that our work plan aligns with federal guidelines and that our funding is appropriately allocated to those objectives. In your packet on page 61, you have a Schedule 5A-2 that is identifies all the federal revenues that we expect to receive this year that total $7.8 million. On the screen, you see the current allocations that are new to this year, whereas the 7.8 does include estimated carryover. The items on your screen right now, totaling $2.7 million, are the new allocations for next year, which remain relatively consistent with our current fiscal year, just slightly down on the CMAQ funds. Next slide, please. Also on that same schedule in your packet, you'll see the state revenues, which total $3.6 million that includes our carryover. Our current new allocations for this year are state PPM money of $200,000 and our REAP administration money of $200,000. And the Sustainable Communities grant of $132,000 from last year is ending in this current fiscal year and will not be carried over into the next fiscal year. So you'll notice that our state revenues are slightly down coming into this next fiscal year. Also, our local revenue of $3.5 million includes our standard revenue that we would normally expect to receive from local transportation funds, Measure L, membership dues, and SB 125, which is an administrative cost for that particular grant that is bringing in additional funding for our rideshare program. And then also the administrative and staff time associated to the Measure L Regional Project 132 West. Next slide, please. So our service and supplies is relatively consistent with the current fiscal year at $896,837, with just an increase of $1,400. So nothing really new there on that front. Next slide, please. Our operating contracts are coming in at $2.2 million with a decrease of about $798,000 overall. We attribute most of this change to the lack of continuing contracts that we have for this year that was brought on by the additional administrative costs associated to an interim director and some backfilling of positions due to lack of staffing. We don't expect that to continue in the next fiscal year. So you'll see that these costs are slightly down over last year. Next slide, please. So our salaries and benefits are for 17 staff positions. The base salaries include the potential for cash outs and sick leave at $2.3 million. Fringe benefits, which include car allowance for the executive director, professional development, and deferred comp, total $50,766. Our health benefits are sitting at about $514,000, and workman's comp and payroll taxes attribute another $1.6 million for a total of $3.7 for this fiscal year. At the end of our last amendment last month for the 25-26 year, we did decrease staff by $1.4 million to account for some of those additional overhead costs we had with those contracts. However, we are planning on being fully staffed again this next year. And so actually the net change over last year is actually a decrease of $500,000. But that's because we did eliminate 3 positions. So we went from 21 to 17. And this salary and benefits also for next year do include a 3% COLA and potential for 5% merit increases. Next slide, please. So our contracts for projects this year are fairly consistent. However, we are planning to add the potential for a active transportation plan. Currently, we're only using staff time for that. We've also planned for a pavement management program. So we've allocated $525,000 towards that. And then we've also budgeted $165,000 to update the Measure L strategic plan. Next slide, please. So this concludes with our overall budget being $14,036,009, which is an increase over last year of $3,694,599,000. StanCog did receive comments back from our funding partners on April 3rd. These comments have been incorporated into the final overall work program that you can view using the link in your staff report. StanCog's required to submit the overall work program. Actually, we were required to submit it on May 8th, which was Friday. We did comply with that with Caltrans. And then this will be going to the policy board next week for final adoption. Once we have that resolution, we'll be sending that off to Caltrans and we do expect to get full approval from them for this next fiscal year. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Karen. Any questions? Yeah, go ahead, Rosa.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome, Karen. I haven't had the privilege of meeting you. Thank you for stepping up and assisting us. And You referenced in one of the last slides, contracts. Can we go back to that slide,
Sure.
please? Where on our operating and project revenues and expenditure budget is that listed? Is that the same as consulting services or is it different?
For which project?
In general, your reference to contracts.
Oh, so if you go, I'm sorry, could you please go back to the slide for operating contracts? There you go. Okay, so on these operating contracts, when you're looking at augmented staff, last year we had $285,000 for augmented staff. And then additionally, they had increased the amounts for let's see, where did it go? I'm so sorry now. I'm trying to find it on here for you. Consulting services as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so those consulting services included some time that they were, or some contracts that they were using for some additional legal services for investigating, for investigative services, and also auditors and augmented staff for additional accounting support. So those consulting services and the augmented staff combined were quite stealthy in those contracts. So we don't expect those to be as high as they were last year. Some of them are carrying forward for this current into the next fiscal year, but you know, they paid out an amount
Okay.
this year. So that's why
So
those.
I think you just delineated in detail, which was helpful to me to understand the consulting services under operating contracts, why it is where it's at. But my original question was, is this title consulting services the same as contracts? Are those two different line items or is it one and the same?
Yeah, so on this slide, you have operating contracts, which consist of all the contracts that we use for the various operating services. The other slide where it was talking about project contracts, those relate directly to projects that Stancog takes on for their planning work. Am I misunderstanding your question? I'm so sorry.
I think what you're saying is contracts can be both in under operating contracts. And
Yeah.
under that category, they're called consulting services. And then contracts can be in other categories as well.
Correct. Correct.
Okay,
So
okay.
we do have operating contracts, which are consistent with the operations that Stancog engages in, more administrative contracts, whereas your project contracts relate directly to the planning programs that the planners take on. So that's the difference.
Okay.
between the two
Yeah, which
slides.
is Schedule 3 has those contracts which are project related.
Three.
Stay
Beautiful.
with a specific project.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
And
combined-
sometimes these, consulting services, or sometimes we might execute a purchase order or something that's, a really low threshold just for standard, operating.
And those are
needs.
different than the project contract.
Correct.
And those are listed where?
So the project contracts are
On
on
Schedule
Schedule
3.
3. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. And then on page 61, under operating and project revenues, under state revenues, and I apologize that I don't know this after being on this policy board for 3-4 years already, but the PPM carryover, we have a remaining decrease of 305,135. Why is that listed as a carryover?
So when Stancog has grants, and PPM is also a grant, they're good for 3 years.
Okay.
So as we expend money against that grant, it decreases. And then whenever there's an amount left over, we have to call that carryover. So that comes into the next fiscal year as a carryover. When we're doing our budget at this time of the year, that's an estimated amount, right? Because we haven't finished out the year. So that could be higher, could be lower, depending on how the year finishes, for invoicing those grants and the work that's being done that's utilizing those funds. So at the end of the year in June, when the books close, they will have a certified amount that will go to Caltrans in August. And then these numbers will be adjusted to actual carryover numbers. But anything that's remaining in a grant that's still left open for use is carried over into the next fiscal year. And at this time, that's our best estimation of what we believe those funds will look like going into fiscal year 26, 27.
So at the time, it appears that we will be carrying over a negative amount.
So here, I'll just clarify, we're comparing against our last amendment we did that we just approved. And we had a lot more carryover than we should or typically would have from last year. And so this year, we're just anticipating 138,000 of carryover as opposed to the 442,000 of carryover that they had last year. So it's not that we have a negative amount, it's just we're being conservative and
That we're gonna-
assuming a lower carryover.
Oh, I see.
It's just a decrease to the carryover, not a negative.
Yeah, apologies. Yeah, it's
I see.
kind of
I see.
awkward because, and like Karen said, because amendment number 2 does account for kind of the certified amount of carryover, which we had quite a large amount. And
Okay. Okay, so we're going to be carrying over 138,542. That's a little bit.
I know, misleading. I know.
Yeah,
it's just-
yeah. Okay. And then my last question has to do with the one below with the REAP admin. What happened there to, again, put us in a negative of 966,957?
Well, that again, you're looking at the difference in
That's the
numbers
same thing?
from one year to the next, not a negative number. They're allocated a certain amount of money for REAP administration, and based on
this
what
is carry on as
utilize
well?
what they utilize for this year, after you take that away, then that had a remainder of what they expected to use for this year is 200,000.
Okay, so that's a carryover as well.
Yes,
So maybe we should have written carryover also on that one. So,
I will change that going
All
forward for policy
maybe a
board, so
negative
it's more
number.
clear.
okay. All right. And I'm wondering if it's best just to have the increase and decrease column just be blank as to not in, okay, great. Those are the questions I had. Thank you for your presentation again.
Any other? Zito? You have something?
The most important question is the carryover on a 3-year grant. If we don't spend it, do we give it back? Are we forced to give it back?
We will lose it if we don't spend it all. Yes, that is correct.
So we're trying to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
We
constant.
are
cycle.
It's
definitely
a
trying to
constant,
spend
yeah,
that.
clock.
We-
As long as you're not over the amount that was from 3 years ago,
Yeah.
right? So as long as you use 3 years, even if you continue to have carryover.
Yep.
You just got to use your older fund first.
Remind me, on the pavement management plan, we did this before and there was an issue because one of the cities didn't want to participate and they wanted to refund because everyone pays in, right? A proportional share.
Yeah, we haven't worked out quite the details with each jurisdiction yet
Yeah.
on that project, but
Is that an every 10-year, 8-year? Every so often we were doing it.
I would have to go back and see exactly when the last update was done, but typically 5
5
years or
years.
so.
Mm,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Because I think the statewide needs assessments 5 years.
And as we're looking at budget, are you going to give an update on recruitments later? Okay, so I'll save those until your report.
All right. There's no other questions from the board. I'd like to open it up for public comment. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Anything online? Okay, I'll bring it back for either more comments, questions, and or motion.
Motion to approve?
I have a first and a second. Shannon, did you get those? Yes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to 5B, authorize the executive director to execute Amendment 1 to the Caltrans Cooperative Agreement for State Route 132 West Plans, Specifications, and Estimate, Dakota Avenue to Gates Road. Tony Harris.
Well, Tony couldn't be here today, so you will have me presenting this item. So imagine Tony presenting it, it'll be much better. He presented it to the executive management, the executive finance committee, which complimented him on what a great presentation. And at the policy board meeting, Tony will provide, because he hasn't for a while, just an overall update on the 132 project, because there are 3 different large items, 2 of them tonight, and then you'll have some ROMs at that meeting as well. So he'll be there to present all of these. So my apologies if I can't do as good of a job as him, but we'll bear with me. Next slide. So I think this room is very familiar with the project, so I won't spend too much time on background on the project. Again, Tony will go through these phases with you, but the Dakota to Gates or Gates to Dakota project has 2 overcrossings and a roundabout at Gates Road. But this is, the portion that we're currently in design right now and will be the subject of this PSNE agreement. Next slide. This is kind of small, but again, we're currently in design and right-of-way right now for the project. There have been some delays, and so construction is anticipated for early next year. And next slide, please. Construction is estimated at 77 million, and as this board is well aware and has celebrated, you got TSEP funding this last year, 67 million, which is huge to have achieved that. And so and then matching that with Measure L of 10 million. So we have the construction money ready to go, acquiring property and finalizing design. Next slide. And so currently, StanCog's the implementing agency for all phases of the project, including construction. Currently, we've been evaluating with Tony Harris and Caltrans the options of StanCog continuing to what we call AAA the project, which is advertise, award, and administer the construction contract, or have Caltrans take over that process because they are, have expertise and staffing resources to administer large construction projects. So meeting with Caltrans when interim director Miller was here and Tony Harris developed an arrangement with Caltrans, provided cost estimates to do that work for us, and really evaluating StanCog's current capacity and staffing resources to have the ability to administer such a large construction contract. While we would hire project management services to do most of the work, StanCog staff would still have to do a lot of the invoicing, request for reimbursements, ensuring the matching and the eligible costs are there. And then also, do contract change orders. So there's a lot of nuances that really could put the agency at risk if you don't have adequate staff that really understand, the rules and how to administer a project of this size. And since it's such a large construction contract, that puts, again, the agency at even more of a risk in the future to pay money back if you administer it incorrectly. So it's really important that, we put it in the right hands. And so that the recommendation is to have Caltrans AAA on the project at this time. Next slide. And again, I think I just explained this, the benefits. Clearly, Caltrans, this is what they do, is administer construction highway projects. The TSEP funding can go towards contract administration. So it would go directly to Caltrans for that work. And then after right of way, obviously, would be transitioned to Caltrans after construction. Apologies. Right away would be transitioned to Caltrans anyways. So in order to do that, we have to amend our current design plan specifications and estimates, cooperative agreement with Caltrans to add funding for them to award, advertise, and administer the contract. And so that's the item before you. And essentially, approving this item is board concurrence that Caltrans will AAA the project, and then that we will amend our cooperative agreement with them to do so and fund their work in that for administering the contract. Next slide. Yes, this is the recommendation. So pass it off to committee for questions.
Is there actually any cost because the $900,000 goes to Caltrans we were going to spend anyways, right? Or something close to it. So we believe it's sort of cost neutral. I know it's too early because it's being bid out. The construction, that's,
My question is very surface, but nevertheless, it's currently we have Caltrans represented at the policy board meeting and they report out on contract, Caltrans related information of interest to our policy board. Will this item have a manager where they report out on their work on 132? Or will the updates come from the existing Caltrans reporting as it is, as it always been on our agenda?
That's a fair question. I think it would be best suited to be in updates like related specific to 132 and with Tony Harris,
Yeah.
kind of directing that process. And the board can request, maybe quarterly updates or monthly, depending on the activity, level of activity. So
see.
I think it would be separate.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? It states here, the discussion of transferring the right of way of ownership to Caltrans could actually begin before construction is even finished, right? So that possibly going this route could even jump ahead.
It
As
could
construction.
expedite some, activities that you
Okay.
can do prior to completion. Yeah.
Any other question? No? Open it up for public comment. Any public comment on this agenda item? Anything online? I'm trying to bring it back to the board. Motion to approve. I have first, and I'll go ahead and second. Sorry, Vito, third, beat you on that one. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. All right, moving on to 5C, recommend the policy board approve a resolution authorizing the executive director to negotiate and execute an on-call professional service agreement with FC Construction to board, fence, and sign vacant buildings acquired for the state Route 132, West Needham Street to Gates Village project. And I assume that you're going to be doing this, Amber?
Yes, I will take this one as well. This one I might need to follow the PowerPoint a little bit more. Next slide, please. And you can go to the next slide. We've already talked about the limits of this project. So, right away, we're currently in right away of Gates to Dakota, next slide, as well as the interchange project. And so can you go to the next slide? And next slide. We've already talked about these on the last one. So currently need 24 acquisitions with 5 agreements fully reached. And 5 buildings need to be removed. So this is from Gates to Dakota. Next slide. And then for the interchanges, it's a lot more significant with 41 acquisitions needed. We've reached 17 agreements with property owners and 26 buildings need to be removed. Next slide. And so a big part of when, we're vacating these properties becomes significant issues with safety, people, potential squatters. So we've been needing to board and fence, sign and provide, come in and do clean out of these properties. So, we've so far executed kind of emergency purchase orders of upwards of $50,000. So we've gone out with an RFP to do these services full time. Next slide. And I believe we received 2. We issued this in March. We received bids in April. Next slide, please. So this is why the number 13 was sticking in my head. I thought we received 13, but 13 downloaded the RFQ. 2 actually ended up submitting the proposal, and one of them was determined not responsive. So next slide, please. The recommendation tonight is to go with one firm that responded, that was responsive, that met all of the evaluation criteria, or not to exceed $500,000. Again, this will be, the budget impact, this will be funded through Measure L as part of the right-of-way services for the project. Next slide. And I'll take questions.
All right, any questions for Amber? All right, any public comment on this agenda item? Anything online? All right, bring it back to the board for motion. Have a first
And a second.
and Vito second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Moving on to 5D, federal fiscal year 2027-2030 congestion mitigation, air quality, and surface transportation block grant funding round updates. Is it?
Yes, hello. Jose Luis Casas. I'm your Director of Programming and Program Delivery. And this item is just an update on how our funding round is going. This is the 2027 through 2030 CMAQ and STBG funding round update. There has never been a funding round like this at StanCog, at least exactly like this. Every 2 years, we program congestion mitigation, air quality, and service transportation block grant funds. Looked like there was a bit of a lag. We should be programmed out through 2030 and at least through 2028, and we're not. We're actually only programmed out through this year. Your local city, county, you guys are programmed with a capital improvement program out 5 years usually. Cities and counties know what roads they're going to be working on today, tomorrow, and way out into the future. Here at StanCog, we should be also, and this funding round gets us there. Once approved by the policy board next month, we will know what we're doing this year, next year, all the way through 2030. So a status update. This funding round took a little bit of time, as is this PowerPoint. Okay, so cast your memory back to September 2024. We did outreach and workshops with our local member agencies, your agencies, to ask how should this next funding round be done? Because we had already done our very first competitive funding round. The question was, if we do a double size funding round, we have some opportunities to do things a little different. And then right around this time, your director of programming also discovered that we had carryover funds of CMAQ and STBG equal to a whole 2 years worth of funding. So we had the opportunity to do a 6-year funding round, opportunities to do things different. So we worked with the local agencies back and forth till we came up with the draft guidelines, which came to the policy board twice, in March for discussion, April for action. We released the call for projects. Our local agencies asked for a lot more time to prepare their applications. With $96 million on the line, they really wanted the time to do it right. And we actually extended that deadline by a month to October 15th, 2025. Now, around the same time, your programming and the programming and program delivery staff decreased to just me. And $96 million in the number of applications we received was a lot for our department to process. Our scoring committee, rather than meeting in December and January, met in March through April. And during that time, we found out that the CMAQ calculations, the way our agencies have been doing them, is not correct. So I met with every single local agency after having met with the Air Resources Board to confirm how these should be done. We recalculated everyone's CMAQ calculations, and just today, I received the very last recalculations. So we're coming to the policy board in June with a recommendation. This is a busy slide. What you need to, the takeaway from here is that it's 4 years worth of funding. They're not all available in the very first year. They need to last us out through 2030. That said, we do have $25,579,000 of carryover funds, in addition to $17 million that will be coming in 2027. So if anyone is ready in 2027, we have the money to program and for them to obligate to start work. So here's the results so far of the funding round. Applications have come in. Once you take off the top of non-competitive funding that this policy board has already programmed months ago, that left 90 million and change for the competitive round, total of 96 million. The requested funds are at 162. That's a little over 71. I'm sorry, that's 180% of the total, which means there's about 71 million and a half that we're not going to be able to fund unless we can come up with more money. And I meant to go back just a smidge. We sorry, I just realized, have I been advancing this? Okay, all right. We sorry, this is being a little finicky. Could you advance it one slide? Thank you. Since doing the development of the funding round and the fund estimate, new numbers have come in. So the actuals versus the estimates have come in higher. So we actually have more money than the 96 million available program. Also, the federal government gave us a bonus of these interesting funds. They're normally used for loans, but for us, they're actual money that we get to program as STBG called TIFIA funds. So in June, I plan to bring a revised fund estimate for the policy board. And so hopefully we can program even more of than the amount we have available. And with that, I'll go to the next slide. So some of the challenges we've had were staffing challenges. It took us 6 months to replace our programming staff. Things have been a little tumultuous over the last year. And then the CMAQ calculations, recalculating those with all the local agencies. Some of them required them going and gathering new data. It was a bit of a challenge, but we rose to meet it. Next slide is, I believe, questions.
Any questions for Jose?
So TIFIA was a low interest loan, both for rural and urban areas. And this is money that wasn't utilized, putting in the CMAQ.
That is the best explanation that anyone can come up with. But the smartest people at Caltrans, that they just kind of go, yeah, it's money. And so that's how we're using it.
TIFIA is not going away because there's instances when it's really important, especially for rural communities, of which Stanislaus County is. Some of it's rural.
Member Case, can you please speak closer to your mic?
Yes.
To confirm, TIFIA remains and continues to be a loan program that regions such as Stancock could take advantage of. This is different. These are funds that we just get to have and program to projects, no repayment required. How it came to pass that this year of all years we got TIFIA funds, it has not been explained to your staff, but we're ready to program it. These funds also have a quick clock on them, so we're going to put them on projects that are ready to obligate in the first year.
Work. Any other questions for Jose? Go ahead and open it up to public comment. Any public comment? Anything online? No? All right. I'll bring it back to the board.
So I'll go ahead and make the motion, and you got big work ahead of you because this is a big tranche of money to get going on. A lot of it.
That's a good problem to have.
And no action required. This is just information. The real motion will come next month.
Thank you for the update. All right. Everybody take a look at 5E. See if there's any changes on the policy board agenda that you'd like to see made.
There's this many resolutions of necessity.
We anticipate there will be approximately 10 resolutions of necessity next week. We'll have the final list there tomorrow.
Changes. If anybody has any idea that like they see change?
Let's see, Benson. 7C is so small it can go on to consent. I can't imagine. No one wants to talk about it. We can pull it one item.
Catch that?
Yeah, yep. And then necessity and the overall work program have to be done. And 132, yeah, Caltrans. Yep.
All right. We've given direction. Any public comment on anything online? All right. Executive Director report.
Teacher. I'll take this one. Lighten the mood a little bit. Okay. Let's see. Been here a month now. Been meeting a lot with board members and agencies, our committee members. So that's been really good. Really been focusing on our finances, internal procedures and processes and getting, those audits done for 23, 24 and 24, 25. So we're working towards those. 23, 24 is looking like we're hoping for June. So that's our goal right now. And close the books on that. So that's good, giving us a better idea of our current financial situation. We did submit, as you know, our RWP amendment for 25, 26, and then as well as our 26, 27 final RWP, no conditional approval and no extension needed. So Caltrans was very, very excited and happy with us. So we thank you to Caltrans for their support with that. So that was a big lift for us. We just started an FHWA certification review, which happens every 4 years. So lucky us, it happened to fall this year. So we're initiating that with FHWA and FTA. So that will look at all of our planning and programming activities and that we're meeting all of our MPO and RTPA requirements. So that's a process that our staff is gearing up for. We'll have to provide them a bunch of information. They'll come out and do a site visit. We'll probably visit some projects. So we're initiating that as well. So a lot of work there. Current recruitments, the finance director, we got 34 applications. We did a first round of interviews last week with 6 applicants and moving forward 3 to a final round. So hopeful to have an offer to somebody by the end of this month and see if they can start as soon as possible. So June, looking at June, July, for that position. Planning director recruitment too. We received a lot of really good qualified applicants for that. We did our first round of interviews. Did we do 6? No, 5. 5. And moving forward 4, I think, for another round this week, actually. So that's really positive. And then we just released a position for engineering manager. So that's currently being flown. So if everybody can get that out, that would be great. Any questions on the recruitment? Other items, just to make sure, we're keeping track on things that we said we'd bring back. So the salary survey, class and comp, the MFC did create a subcommittee for that. So we're going to be meeting with them and then working with them on recommendations on how to move that forward. So that'll be coming back at some point. And then employee manual changes that were requested at the board meeting, at the last policy board meeting. Are not coming to this one, but we're working on those to bring them back in June. We have 2 RFPs out. Well, 1 RFP out for IT services. And then we will be releasing 1 for legislative services because our legislative contract is up at the end of this year. And we'll have a closed session here because I've visited and we're talking and evaluating the use of our building at 1407 I Street. So we'll have a closed session regarding that. And then other activities that I've attended and done, went to Riverbank, council member calls office hours and presented on the regional housing needs assessment process, which is a very exciting process, but they had some resident concerns and questions about that allocation process because they're going through their housing element update. So that was a good presentation and discussion with the community there. And then attended the San Joaquin Valley Executive Directors Retreat. Thank you, Supervisor Chiesa, for attending, and Jose Luis attended with me. So that was really good to meet up with the 8 other Valley COGs and executive directors and board members and talk to them about what's the mission and vision for that group. on the policy council, and then kind of how we're going to coordinate together and advocate for, valley-wide issues and projects in the future. So that was really good for me being, new, but I did know most of them. So that was good. And I believe that's my main updates. I'll be working with the board, any upcoming conferences and whatnot. I know NARC has some events this year, as well as the Washington DC trip at the end of the year that we need to plan for.
Yeah. Any questions for him?
I do have one. When you reference the RFP for legislative services, were you referring to state or federal or both?
Cool. Yeah. We're doing 2 separate RFPs, one for federal, one for state.
And they were both up at the same
Correct.
time?
Correct, right?
And is this typical what we normally do? We don't have any amendments that lengthen the time, extensions, I should say, not amendments.
All of the extensions have been exercised, at least for the state. I'll confirm for the federal, if we could exercise any additional. However, I know that, this is an opportunity to kind of look at those services and look at the pricing and be able to evaluate and negotiate that.
Sure,
moving
sure.
forward.
And to that end, did you maintain the same level of pricing as we have in previous years, or were they any different? You could share more on that.
We haven't released our fee yet, but we're hoping that bidders will come in and propose a price based off of the services that we are requesting. So we're hopeful for maybe potentially different pricing options
Okay,
than we're currently paying right now.
I see. Okay. In the RFP that we put out, is the scope of work the same as it was in previous years?
It's
Or did
similar.
we- so it's not exactly it. It's similar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It has not been released yet.
Correct.
We plan on doing so when?
We have drafts when, probably not this. By the end of this month.
Okay, good. Thank you. No more questions.
Any other question? Any member reports? I will say I attended the meeting that Amber got to present the arena, how the numbers have come up with in that meeting in Riverbank. I thought she did an outstanding job. There was a couple of times I think that some of the attendees wanted to suck her into the politics of what was going on in Riverbank, and she did a great job in kind of fending that off and just giving the facts and how numbers are coming. So I thought she did a great job. Any other?
I just want to add on to the Regional Policy Council retreat. It's a lot of it was on strategic planning the first day, and it's something that I'm terrible at and I don't like doing. And it was done the best way I've ever seen it done. It kept everyone engaged, completely engaged, and it was pretty amazing. And that's Georgina, who's what do we call her? Administrator? Yeah, administrative executive. Put a lot of thought into it, and it was really well done. I had my rapt attention for 2 whole days, which is again another impossibility. So it was good stuff.
Any other? All right. We're going to adjourn to closed session. Need to give a report on closed session.
The executive committee will adjourn to closed session to discuss items 8A and B as identified on the agenda.
Good job. Oh, thank you.
We're coming back into open session. There is no reportable action. And we are adjourned. Yeah.